Barbara Hathaway, Ovarro's new technology leader for Leakage Solutions, discusses her career in the water industry, sharing her positive experiences of the double whammy of being a female engineer in a male-dominated career and a woman in the male-dominated water sector. She also discusses the leakage challenge facing the industry as it seeks to ensure that customers do not run out of the essential supply of water.
Okay, so a nice simple question to start with, I guess, is have you always wanted to work in the water industry? And I suppose the supplementary to that was, depending on that answer, how did you end up in the sector?
That's an interesting question, that one. I had no desire to work in the water industry when I went to Portsmouth University. Portsmouth is a naval town. It's the home of the British Navy, so most of the engineering jobs are in the defence industry. I found myself that I didn't really want to work in that industry. Making bombs isn't really the thing that I fancied doing with my life. So I looked around and I found a job with a local company, privately owned company called SpectraScan, who worked in the water industry. And so I just kind of fell into it in that way.
Okay, and from falling into it there to where you are today, it'd be good to understand, what the journey has been, if you like.
Yeah. I mean, when I first got my job with SpectraScan, I was employed on a contract as a software tester. So I studied electrical and electronic engineering, so software was a slight move away, although you do learn some of it in my degree course. But I got a job as a software tester. Proved myself at that, proved I could also fix some of the things that I found wrong, so became a software engineer and stayed with SpectraScan, who soon after I joined were bought by the Bywater Group. And I stayed with those for 5 years, continuing gaining experience in software. And after 5 years, there was a new company being formed called Primea, and I was headhunted to be software engineer for that company. So it was a new startup. It was a very vibrant, lively company to start up. I was the software engineer to start with, developing Windows software. And because I knew the product so well, I learned about the applications. I just worked my way up. I took over the technical support. At one stage was managing the repair service. A small company, you grow as the small company grows. And 25 years later, when Primea were eventually sold, I progressed up to become the technical services director. So looking after all of the software development, looking after all of the technical after sales, providing training, looking for new product opportunities. So kind of looking after all of the technical side of the business. And then in 2019, Primea changed ownership. We were bought by Servolex Technologies. And since then, we've rebranded as Ovarro. So I'm still essentially in that same job that I moved into now 28 years ago. But when Servolex bought us, I progressed and became the VP of engineering, so looking after the global engineering team. So it was it meant the technical support moved away from me, some of the other technical things, but my engineering team expanded, a team of 25 engineers, multiple countries, many different products than just the ones that we'd done at Primea. So a very exciting time for 2 years. And then recently this year, I progressed into a technology leader role for Leakage Solutions. And this role is to help forge our roadmap going forward. So forging that, the new technologies, what do we need to advance to provide the best solutions for our customer in the water leak detection area.
Okay, and that's a separate topic. We can perhaps touch on it a bit later, but that's obviously an exciting area in itself. But for now, at least, can I just ask, in terms of the challenges you faced along the way of the career you've described, would you say that they were sort of normal type career challenges, or is the fact that you were a woman in not just engineering, which is perhaps you were in the minority there, but the water industry itself is certainly traditionally been quite male dominated. So did you bump into any kind of, what are you doing here, why are you here, anything at all, or have you just found you've always been accepted and welcome for who you are, as opposed to any issues, if you like?
I think I've been incredibly lucky in my career, in that I don't feel I have faced any barriers because of my gender. I feel that people have accepted me. I think some of that is that when I joined Primea, I was the junior. I was one of the youngest people there. I was the least experienced. And when I did interface with customers, with other people in the water industry, there was always somebody else who was saying, oh, and this is Barbara, she can help you with this. And so people accepted me for what somebody else presented. I think that there have been a few occasions when going to see clients, I think this is more prevalent overseas, you go and visit them with a male colleague and they will assume the male colleague is the more senior. But I've been very fortunate that my colleagues, they don't try and, big that up. They say, oh, no, actually, she's the one who's the boss. So I think by having a good team around me, it has helped ensure that I haven't suffered from some of the problems that maybe other ladies in the industry have.
And I'm just wondering, I mean, have you, as you've gone through, I mean, have you linked it? Have you either had mentors to help you on your way as well, and or have you linked into any groups, whether that's specifically women or engineering groups, just to give you some support in your role as you've gone along, or have you been pretty much self-sufficient, if you like?
I think there have been kind of, maybe mentor is a little bit of a strong word, but there have definitely been role models that I've picked up on. And one big role model is a lady called Kyra Tahir. Now, she was one of the original backers in Primea. She provided the money. She's a Malaysian business lady. And there was just something about her. You could tell that she was a powerful lady. She was very self-confident, but she could get off a plane from Malaysia, arrive in the factory, and she would know the names of all the children of the people that worked there, because she took an interest. She was genuinely interested in people. And that's something that I've tried to role model myself on, that actually by having that personal touch, you are taken more seriously, and people will respect you more. You have to earn that respect. It doesn't just arrive with you. So she's been a very big influence, even though I may not have spent a lot of time with her. Just knowing the way that she would have dealt with things has been something that's guided me. And yeah, I've worked with many colleagues over the years that I wouldn't call it formal mentoring, but they have definitely influenced the way that I work and provided good role models for me.
And in terms of the way the industry may, or well, hopefully it's changed or not, you say you don't necessarily say direct, you've had any direct sort of impact or come across sort of discriminations, etc. But are you aware? Have you seen the industry potentially change in the way it's treated other women and diversity groups? Just be interested, because you've been in the industry quite a time. So have you seen that sort of evolve at all, or is it always been good, or is it still as it was? I don't know. I
think that, UK Water, or particularly English Water, we're privately owned companies, and I can see from the way that they promote themselves, they're promoting their diversity and inclusivity. They want to, the way they present themselves out toward the public shows that they are thinking in a private company way, and promoting the fact that they do have female engineers, they do have women in jobs that are perhaps a little unusual. And a lot of the leadership in UK Water, we've got some very high level ladies working in there, the CEOs of this world. So there is good diversity within the industry, But I do find as it gets further down and into more technical roles, it's not as diverse as it should be. But they are trying to promote it. They are trying to convince women that this is a viable career. Why don't you come and do this? I think the perception of engineering has changed, certainly from when I was a student. I studied electrical and electronic engineering. It was unusual for girls to study engineering. I was on a course of 100, 120 people, and there were 5 of us that were girls. After the first year, one of those girls left because she said, I can't handle it. I don't want to work in an industry that's like this. So you toughen up, and you just have to be able to cope with it, that you don't have females around you all the time, but actually we shouldn't judge everybody by the gender that they are. You can form friendships regardless of gender, and you can form good working relationships regardless of gender.
And in terms of your own sort of the way you've risen up, do you feel any sort of responsibility, or do you look at the issue now? You're in quite a senior role. Are you aware of it? And when it comes to job applications, I know people don't like positive discrimination, but do you at least try to see that there's a nice balance of male and female people applying for jobs, etc.? What sort of things do you think you should be responsible for, and or what do you actually do around these issues?
Yeah, I actually something that I'm very interested in is the biases that we all have. Everybody has a bias, and you need to understand it. And I think this is one of the things that happens in engineering. There's a subconscious bias in that men tend to be the employers, and they will tend to employ men. That's how it is. You always kind of revert to preferring to employ somebody who looks like you. I will obviously prefer to employ women because they look like me, so I suffer from the bias in the opposite way. And I have been fortunate over the years to be able to employ some very good female engineers, and it pleases me that there are those engineers out there, and they are pushing up. I can't comment as to whether, if a colleague of mine had interviewed those people, if they would have still got the job. It's an interesting hypothesis. I don't know if they would, because we all have our biases and we can't really know. But it's been very rewarding to be able to give something back and to see other women coming into the industry and starting to rise up it. And it's something I will always encourage.
And to your point you say about bias, I know there's been political, it's a sort of political football, isn't it? Everyone sort of, some people trash it and other people take it seriously. But in terms of what more could be done to help with equality and diversity, as I think rightly say, we all should be aware of our biases we've either inherited or whatever. But other things that could be, you mentioned, for example, that there were 5 of you and 120 engineers. Hopefully that's a slightly different ratio now. But is there still an issue for sort of school leavers and going on in still thinking that engineering is interesting, and or the water industry, and anything else you think might assist with making it a more equal environment?
I think there's been a lot of work in kind of school age to promote the STEM subjects, because we need people. Engineers, they're not clankies, they're people who solve problems. There are many types of engineering, and I think that promotion is getting through, and that we see more girls being more successful at school now. The change away from single set exams, I think, has helped girls, and so they are as successful as boys at school now, and they can choose what they want to do. I think that the main focus for moving forward should be earlier, and the gender stereotypes that we put around girls and boys. I think they should be removed, and we shouldn't have stereotypes. We should let kids be what they want to be. they're kids. You know, why do girls need to wear pink and boys blue? But they still sit there. They're very deep rooted within people. And I think those are the ones that we should be challenging, because they hold people back. I've been incredibly fortunate in my life, and that my parents, my father's a teacher, teaches physics, and my mother was a chemist. She studied chemistry at university, which was very unusual in the 50s. She then worked in the R&D department at Dunlop Tyres, and worked on some skirts for a new hovercraft. She worked on developing some tyres for a land speed record attempt by Donald. She was a highly intelligent lady. She then got married, had 3 kids, chose to be a housewife. She's the ultimate feminist, my mother. But what they both taught me is there is no ceiling. The opportunities are what you want. If you want to work in a shop, go and work in a shop. If you want to rule the world, go and rule the world. It is up to you what you do. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned from my parents, that don't limit what people can do. Tell them that there's no reason you can't do that. Everybody, you know, every kid starts off the same. Don't limit their possibilities when they're too young, and then they choose to limit their own possibilities later in what they want to do. So I think that's a very important thing, to remove any kind of stereotyping that you can't do this. All kids should be told you can do what you want.
And in terms of the water, I mean, I suspect I know the answer the way you've talked about it, because you're obviously passionate, but recommending the water industry as a career for either girls, you know, coming to the end of school and or a university, or women who are maybe working in a parallel sector and wonder, I presume you'd unreservedly say, yeah, it's a great place, or would you warn anyone about any aspect of it at all?
No, the water industry, I think there's a perception about the water industry. I think if you ask anybody on the street, they'll say, yeah, water falls out of the sky, they treat it a bit, it arrives out of tap. It's not like that. There's many different areas in the water industry, and we're dealing with water, which is essential to life. We can't survive without it. My particular area is leakage. Now, leakage, it's a big problem. We need to solve it. And solving it and being able to know that you are contributing to solving a little part of this water crisis, that's an incredibly empowering thing. And it's exciting. Yeah, you say you can tell that I love my job. And it's the diversity of it. You know, there are solutions out there. I'm now able to go and look and say, right, how can we solve the leakage problem? And anybody young coming up, thinking about what they want to do, being given that amount of freedom, it's a very nice feeling. And
I can't, because you know, I've got you here now. Normally I wouldn't delve too much into technology, but as you say, leakage is fascinating area. It's been far. I mean, when I first got involved with the water industry, I think it was 95, and Frank Dobson had that campaign, if you remember, and to shame all the water companies that were leaking all that water, and it happened to be a dry summer. And at one level, one might argue 30 years on has a lot changed. But in terms of the challenge that you see now, do you think it is similar to what it was then, sadly, that not too much progress is made? Or do you think a lot of technical changes have been made, and it's more about the sort of attitudes and putting it higher up the priority list for water companies and you know, the water stakeholders more generally? Just your thoughts as to, you know, what needs to be done.
I think the challenges got harder. I think that there's a lot of effort goes on, and there's a lot of leaks that are fixed. You know, if we went and replaced all the pipes in the UK, we wouldn't have any leakage, but that's not feasible. So everybody everywhere is working out how can we get the best for what we're doing. the technology that I've been working with really for the last 20 years is acoustic logging. So it's based on the idea that pressurized water in a pipe, if there is a hole in the pipe, it'll make a noise as the water escapes. If you find where the noise is, you find where your leak is. And there's many different types, and there's many companies that create equipment to do that. And of course, I'm going to say that Ovarro make the best equipment, but it's only one tool in the bag. Using acoustic logging, it will help you find leaks, and it will help you pinpoint where there is. But there are many, many leaks on the system. It's not economic to fix everything. What you want to do is you want to find the big leaks. So AI is going to be a big leap forward. It's starting to come to market now. There's a few companies in the UK starting to use it to work out what a leak sounds like, and is this a big one, is this a small one? So that's quite an exciting advance, because if I can tell you there are 30 leaks, if I can tell you that actually if you fix the first one, that's going to save you your money, then of course that's where you put your money and fix that one first. But there are many other things about, because we're focusing on leakage, is it actually leakage? Leakage just means that we think it's, we can't account for it. It's non-revenue water. Maybe somebody's using it. Maybe there's somebody you're not metering. So there are many different parts of solving this leakage problem, which is what makes it so interesting. And yeah, combining those things together, you don't just use one tool. It is a toolbox. Acoustic logging is one tool, correlation is one tool, metering, smart metering is going to be one tool in there. So it's bringing all those together and getting the best solution for the water companies and for their customers. That's the most important thing.
And also, just one final thing, I'm interested. Do you think collaboration is quite important as well? Because with all the sort of, as you say, the AI and stuff, it's perhaps less likely that one organization can provide the sort of end-to-end solution. So you are already, but work with certain partners to provide different parts of it and then present an overall solution to the water companies. Is that more of the way forward than an individual company saying, here's a solution, that'll do the job?
Yeah, I think it is now, because there are so many different areas. You can't have one company that does it all. So collaboration is incredibly important. And I'm lucky enough in my new role, I'm able to go and talk to smaller companies, how can Ovarro kind of link up with you? How can we work with you? How can we incorporate it so we're presenting a single solution to the customer? So yes, I think collaboration, because nobody is going to know about everything. There are different, everybody has their own speciality. So instead of trying to solve it all independently, let's all get in the same place and try and solve it together. Because what we do want to do is we want to solve the problem of leaking pipes. And water companies want to solve that as well. So we did a collaboration with Anglian Water to improve the type of sensor we were using on one of our loggers. Traditionally, you put sensors on the outside of pipes, it picks up vibrations. We combined our logger with a sensor that sits inside the pipe. So it works over longer distances, and it works well on plastic pipes. Traditional sounding along the top of pipes doesn't work on plastic type pipes because the sound doesn't travel very far, but it travels further if you're listening inside the pipe. But Anglian Water helped us to develop that and make it into a product that was viable for the market, not just something that we thought was viable. And I think that's a very important thing, that you need to include the people who are going to use it and who want the solution, because otherwise you'll generate something that isn't quite what they want, and they won't like it and they won't buy it. So collaboration is definitely the way ahead.
And finally, and I promise, because you've given me of your time very, very kindly, in terms of the if you like, the big picture, one level you get people whether they're scaremongering or not, that we are running out of water and we need some radical reevaluation of, and maybe we will have to pay more, etc. And at the other end, people are almost carrying on as if none of this climate change is it's just a short-term thing and it'll go back to normal, whatever that is. Have you just got any thoughts as to how easy or not this challenge is to address? Is the technology there and it's just a question of everyone getting together, working on it? Is it more complicated than that? Just any thoughts as to whether we'll be running out of water in 20 years time or not?
Well, I'm hoping we don't run out of water. No, I think water companies are advanced enough to understand the usage patterns and they do have water and they just need to distribute it appropriately. So I don't believe that we will run out of water. I don't believe we'll, go into a Sky mini series in 20 years time where we're all scraping around trying to live. But there are real crises that, we could, if the water companies don't manage demand and everybody suddenly goes, oh, it's really hot, I'm going to turn on the sprinkler on my garden. Everybody does that in one area. Suddenly the people a little bit further on, you're not pumping enough to get to them. So it's that kind of distribution problem, which is why they manage demand. And I think we all have a responsibility to think, it might fall out of the sky, but it costs money to treat it. We don't need to use as much water. We don't need to waste it. And I think that's something that we should focus on. And I think we will come up with the solutions. And I think the technology is around at the moment. I don't think there will be a new breakthrough moment where suddenly, we can use this to find leaks. I think we do have enough tools in the box. It's just using them in the most efficient way and understanding the data. I think one thing that's changed considerably in the last 5-10 years is the amount of data. Since GSM has exploded and everybody can put a modem on anything, we have IoT sensors, we can log everything, we can work out what's happening at everything. And that's where the AI comes in and the machine learning, that we can work out what's happening. There's much greater detail and much greater understanding about what's happening, which is how they can pick up anomalies about, well, that doesn't follow the same pattern. There's something wrong there. And maybe you've been reporting it as leakage, but it isn't. That's actually consumption. You need to put a meter on that commercial user. Somebody's using water throughout the night. And you've been reporting it as leakage, but now you can log it and get someone to pay for it. I think those are it's understanding how to use all of that data and get the most out of it. I think that will be the big focus for the next 5 years. So I don't think there'll be big advances in new widgets, much as I'd like to invent them. But
no, that's brilliant. I mean, it's been really enjoyable to chat to you, and you shared some great insights, both obviously about the workplace and equality, and then lastly about the leakage stuff. So I'm really grateful for the time you give me, Barbara. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks.
Well, thanks very much. Nice to meet you, Philip.